All right, we got round two of the IG Live, and right before I invite her, I'm just going to give a quick background into Dr. Emily, who is a world famous podiatrist and CEO of Naboso Technology. Really cool company that makes texture-based technology, which I find very useful for working both with myself, my athletes, and regular people. And the one and only doctor will be joining in one moment as I give her an invite, so bear with me as we host. And here we go. All right, let's see. Go live with Dr. Emily. Perfect. Accept. Okay, one moment. I invited Dr. Emily here. She's going to be joining us in a moment. For those who are not familiar with her work, she is a podiatrist who primarily deals with foot health. And let's get her going in 1 second. Here we go. Accept. Go live with Dr. Emily. Why is Instagram being buggy?
Hi there.
Hey, she made it. Okay. Some nice technical stuff. Alrighty. All right. So welcome everyone to this IG Live. I have the privilege today to have the one and only Dr. Emily, who is a world-renowned podiatrist, and she's also the, correct me if I'm wrong, CEO and founder of Naboso Technology.
Yep.
And today we're going to dive in. So Naboso Technology, for those who aren't familiar, is a texture-based company. I get to pitch your product. It's cool. And I've been using this for many years in the hyper. There you go. I had all the gadgets set up before, but I moved from my office to my gym. I thought there was some better lighting here. So I use this primarily for my athletes and for older people who need that texture. They can't always get it. They're wearing cleats all day. And I'm not gonna steal the show. I'm gonna let Dr. Emily introduce herself and tell us about you and what your company does.
Of course. Thank you. Of course. Thank you for using Naboso and sharing about it. As you had said, that the Naboso products are textured. So we are essentially using this texture to stimulate the nerves in the bottom of the feet and technically the palm of the hand. My background, I'm a functional podiatrist, human movement specialist. I'm very uniquely interested in the neurosensory side of human movement and performance. That's really why I developed Naboso, which launched 5 years ago. And again, it's all based around the sensory stimulation of the feet, how it helps connect to our feet, strengthen our feet, and then really support foot recovery.
Okay, well, sweet. Thank you for the intro. You did mention functional podiatry. So can you elaborate more on that? How you and other foot conscious podiatrists are different from the mainstream Western medical podiatrists out there?
Yeah, so most people's impression of podiatry is not in the best light. They think of us as very orthotic pushers, supportive shoe pushers, that we really aren't thinking about how the feet connect to the rest of the body. I completely understand that because of my training. As a functional podiatrist or other podiatrists that are very natural foot function focused, is thinking about minimal shoes, getting out of your shoes, strengthening the small muscles of the feet. And our feet are designed to support their own body weight and arches. So it's really focusing on that. And then I also, as a functional podiatrist, factor in stress, diet, sleep, inflammation. So I really look almost like functional medicine, functional podiatry combined.
I think that's the ideal modern take on medicine. Like we kind of have to move a little bit away from the conventional mainstream if we actually want to be healthy, and that's a big part of barefoot, where we're kind of questioning what the modern world is telling us and moving on to alternative things. Now, I am a high performance coach besides my work that I do in the Barefoot Shoe Review world,
Yep.
and I wanted to divide today and run it by you. Texture technology, such as your own, or exposing yourself to various stuff, terrain and dirt and rocks, for three types of populations. Now, you might have different ways of classifying them, but these are the kind of people that me and my staff will be seeing. So we have the high performance world, professional athletes, semi-pro athletes who would like to use texture or barefooting for performance. They want to get better, they want to get faster, they want to jump higher. Then I would also say what I call NARPs. That NARP is a fun acronym that a colleague of mine made up, non-athletic regular people. And it's a way to differentiate between the athletic population and the just regular dude that wants to lose weight, get strong, live long, pick their kids up over their head.
Yeah.
And then the elderly / people who are recovering from injury. Now, I know they're different populations, but people who need this to function. So how would you go about applying texture to these different populations? We can start with the performance world.
Yeah, absolutely. So all four that you listed, very much everything with movement, optimal movement, whether you're an athlete or you don't want to fall, those are the two extremes, I would say, is based around your connection to your feet or your perception of your feet. So do you feel your feet? Do you feel the ground? Do you feel the impact forces that are coming in with every step that you take so that you have movement accuracy? So that's just, is the foot placement where it should be? Is the stabilization of the hip how it should be, right? So that would be the accuracy of the movement. And then the other component would be movement efficiency. So just, are you moving effortlessly or fascial based? So fascial based movement is very youthful, it's elastic, it's graceful, obviously it's efficient, so you're using energy the right way. So if I talk first about the athletes, so high level athletes, when I work with those individuals with Naboso, or just from a functional podiatry perspective, is the faster they feel their feet, the faster they can stabilize, the stronger they will be, or the faster their reaction time. So you're talking really time to stabilization. Time to stabilization is based off of this anticipatory response to the ground. So they are actually loading and responding to the ground before they even contact the ground. The way that you create those patterns is through extremely high sensory rich environments. So you are training the nervous system. So when that athlete puts on their shoes or their cleats, whatever sport it is that they're playing, that they have this very sharp, quick, anticipatory, and accurate nervous system that is built from the ground up. So that's kind of how I would think of like a high performance athlete. For a, what was it, a NARD?
A NARP, a
Okay.
non-athletic regular person.
I
You
remember
may
saying,
find yourself using this term because I'm sure professionals and regular
yeah,
people make their way to the
regular people, the same thing, right? um Regular people, the big difference here is that we have the stress, the repetitive stress that is different than a pro athlete repetitive stress, but like sitting at a desk or doing something of our work that is different than performance. Also, the recovery for a NARP is going to be very different because I'm not paid to recover. I wish I was paid to recover and spend all that time on my body from recovery. So we want to be very calculated on our stress exposure. The way that we do movement prep is going to be a little bit different, right? We might need to do it a little bit longer or a little bit more specific just because of our stress. But same thing, right? If someone is playing pickleball or whatever it is they're doing as a NARP, then you still need to fill your feet fast because you still need to stabilize fast. I still need you to efficiently recruit your muscles. I need foot to core from the ground up. So everything is essentially exactly the same, right? There's probably just not millions of dollars on the line with it. For the older individual, you could even call it like active aging,
Mm.
right? As far as that, um, as we get older, our nervous system just gets a little bit slower, a little bit dulled, a little bit delayed, which means our perception and our awareness to the feet and the ground and our body and our movement is just a little muffled. It's kind of how you could say it. So by bringing in sensory stimulations such as the different Naboso products, it's almost like you're turning the volume up to the stimulation, or the volume up to the noise so their nervous system can hear it, feel it, to then better control their movements. So that's kind of how I would think of Naboso, natural foot function, and those three types of individuals.
Wow. It's like very similar but very different in the same output. For I'm gonna go over them again and kind of give feedback of what I'm hearing you say. So in the performance world, what I find so funny is that performance coaches such as myself, we tend to focus on what we call, GRF, ground reaction forces. We're always trying to feel the ground, push off the ground, jump off the ground. But if that person's wearing a cleat or a basketball shoe or even a sneaker, the athlete may not even be able to feel the ground. So a hack that we've used is we'll train and warm up barefoot as much as
Mhm.
possible to get that sensory output. And we'll also expose ourselves to different textures. That could be grass, that could be turf, that could be concrete before we put on our shoes. So the athlete's kind of aware. Then unfortunately, even though there are some cleat alternatives out there these days, we'll put them in the shoe and they're already kind of aware of the surroundings. What would be your hack to help an athlete who's struggling to feel the ground, feel the texture, if he or she has to wear cleats or basketball shoes all
Yeah.
the time?
I absolutely love that you do that. That's what I call barefoot before shod. And I advocate that all the time is we know that we're going to go into a shoe that's restrictive, that doesn't twist, has counters. So it's a block in a lot of the natural foot mobility and freedom of motion. Plus, there's obviously different layers of material. So I would be doing exactly what you're doing. I would be using surfaces, texture, activate, wake up the intrinsics, wake up the foot to core. So these pathways that are how we stabilize are activated or woken up before we go into a more sensorily disconnected environment. I'm a big believer in foot to core stabilization, foot to core sequencing, getting your foot intrinsics and your toe flexors, activating your pelvic floor so that your glutes and your hip and all those power muscles have this stable base to contract off of. So that's a big part of what I incorporate into movement prep as well.
Okay, now because you're very into the neural aspect and feeling and everything activated properly, you gave the example of the NARP. Once again, for those who just tuned in, non-athletic regular person, you are welcome to use this term whenever you want. Yeah, I find it very useful for like movement-related professionals. So then, let's say sitting at a desk all day, how would they benefit from using sensory sticks, sensory balls, sensory socks? Like, what's happening in their brain when they're not actually moving, just from touching these different spikes and textures?
Yeah. So movement does keep your nervous system stimulated, right? It keeps you tuned in, awake. Obviously, as you're sitting in a computer, type, or you're doing something that is repetitive and not necessarily so natural to the nervous system, using things. So this is our hand kit. This is one of our egg-shaped hand tools, has the Naboso texture, so it's that stimulating to the mechanoceptors in the hand. I leave these next to my computer always, and I'm just literally sitting here fiddling with them. What that does, just through the power of neurostimulation and exteroception, so the hand to the brain, is it is just keeping the brain awake, focused, turned on. In addition to the hand kit, we have sensory sticks, which are weighted. So not only do you have the texture, but you have resistance, and resistance with texture is even more neurostimulating. Other great ways to do that, I know people go from a seated desk to a standing desk to a treadmill desk. All of those are altering our relationship with gravity. And gravity is a sensory stimulation. So the more that you can connect to gravity, the more brain activating it will be. The movement, obviously taking movement breaks, but people could take their shoes off. They could work without their shoes on. Even if they're in a desk, taking your shoes off and just spreading your toes and freeing your feet at your desk when you're working is going to be neurostimulating. It is going to keep the channels to the brain open. And it sounds crazy for those that are not in this space. I know that makes sense to you and probably a lot of your listeners, but by taking off your shoes, socks, even sitting on a desk, there is this open of energy that is coming through the body. So those would just be a few ideas of how I would try to keep tapping into the nervous system to keep focus and keep the brain activated.
Wow. So what you're implying is that even if I can't get large amounts of movement snacks or physical activity in my workday or whatever it is that's keeping me stationary, just by getting small sensory output, like wiggling my toes, touching a sensory ball, touching a sensory stick, little tiny steps can really passively hack my life
Absolutely.
and our life.
Yep,
Sweet.
absolutely.
Oh, and then the third question would really be, so I'm working with my grandma a lot. She has, she's in her 80s. She has, you might have seen the reel on my page. You can pop in it after. Severe bunions, plantar fasciitis, posterior tib, I was balancing on the Naboso thing. Posterior tib, tendonitis, like you name it. She's barely walking, barely functioning, and we're doing small, intricate steps to help her. And this is a situation after putting up this reel. Dozens of people are reaching out and saying, wow, I can't even walk barefoot without pain. I have to wear thick socks, thick shoes, cushion shoes. So where can we best fit texture input into the lifestyle of these people who have severe foot deformities? And I'm sure you see this at podiatrists, to slowly but surely increase their sensory output and hack their way to doing basic things like being able to walk again, being able to get up from the couch.
Yep. So I call this, actually, I have a lecture focused on this and webinars that I've done. I was just at a conference and I did a lecture on the aging foot. And I spoke
Mm.
about, okay, this is where we ideally want to be moving, exactly how you're moving, everything that we're talking about for natural foot function, optimal movement, movement longevity, athletic performance, etc. But as we get older, there are these inevitable changes that occur, which means they may not be able to be barefoot, which seems kind of crazy, but it's true. If someone has thin skin, they have fat pad atrophy, it feels like they're walking on the knuckles of their feet, they have neuropathy. So they have this um, where these structural changes are occurring in their feet, making it difficult to be naturally moving as we are. So in that case, they may need some cushion, but of course, cushion is damping sensory information. So could we use the Naboso insole in the shoe to kind of meet them where they are? When I work with patients like this, I call it I know what I would love. Here's their reality. How do I meet them at their reality with my recommendations or my beliefs so that it fits into their lifestyle, right? So could we release the feet on the neural ball every day before we go into our cushioned shoes? Could we wear the Naboso insole in the cushioned shoe? Could we wear the socks in the cushioned shoe? So you're trying to say, okay, at least let me get that sensory stimulation. And then what we do when we get out of our shoes at the end of the day, super, super important. Vibration, texture, earthing, all the stuff that we like to do. We still want to dose that in.
Yeah, wow. That's actually a hack because I actually do have a pair of Naboso insoles. I tried, so when I, this is specifically my grandma, but this can refer to dozens or thousands of people around the world suffering from foot pain. The texture was too much for her. As crazy as that sounds, but she was in a
Yeah.
stage where it was just like, I can't do this right now. So I switched her from standing to sitting, and she was like,
Mhm.
okay, this is doable. So
Yep.
kind of regressing it to progress.
Yep.
One more question I did think a viewer asked, one of my athletes I work with, because you work with dozens of people, hundreds, thousands of people around the world. For an athlete, someone high performance, strong feet, can run barefoot, how thick is too thick and how thin is too thin? And I'll elaborate a little bit. I have found that with many of the runners I work with, so they can run completely barefoot and they enjoy it. But for performance related purposes, marathons, sports, cleats, basketball, they need a little bit thicker. But if they go too thick, even a barefoot shoe, even a zero drop shoe, they start losing so much proprioception and sensory feedback that they just can't perform. But they still need some cushion for performance reasons. So where's that divide for that high performance guy? Is it a certain stack height? Is it individual? Too much insole, too little insole? Where's that perfect balance?
Yeah. Anytime I make recommendations like that, I try to make it individualized
Of
versus
course.
blanketed across
But
people,
don't
right?
blanket it, but a generalized
Yeah.
statement for that tuning. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think that that is a valid question that I also addressed at this conference because I was doing a ultimate footwear guide as one of my talks. So it was something that I brought up and I said, for some individuals based off of their foot strength, foot type, injury history, whatever it is, that when they do the shorter runs, 5K, 10K, they like the minimal, maybe even barefoot, right? I don't know. But as soon as they push the 26.2 miles and they're just at that higher little bit more unnatural level of repetitive stress, right? Then we have to look at some degree of cushion. And of course, there's marathoners who do it barefoot and stuff like that. So, but I feel like those are anomalies. For the majority of us, there's going to be the need for some cushion. This is where I look at transitional shoes. So, Ultra would be a great example of something that people could say, okay, it's not too much of a stack, although I feel like some of Ultras are getting more stacked.
Mhm.
So it's trying to stay a little bit more minimal on that. And then when you are actively in the run, um, there are, I mean, it's hard because you're moving, but maybe there would be a way to utilize other ways to access the nervous system in the brain. I would probably play around with the hand while running, something like that. And it doesn't even have to be texture, it could be different fascial tensioning techniques where doing things like this, like I'm opening my hand as wide as I can and trying to like shoot energy out of my fingers, but it's a very brain activating what it does to the entire thing. It could be like contract and then relax. Obviously, you're running, so you have to be doing this in dynamic. But it is trying to stay awake and connected, knowing at the end of the race, you're going to hit the recovery through vibration, texture, whatever it is. And it's kind of finding that unique balance.
Mm. Yeah, so I'm hearing from you that it's really just about individualizing to the person based on their abilities and capabilities. I like the concept of transition shoes, and guys and girls who are listening, keep in mind that even in transitions, you can always be reduced or added. You can take the insulin out, you can put the insulin, so you can always transition it to your needs. For those who joined late, I will be downloading this IG Live and putting it up as a podcast. It's the Cold Feet Podcast on Spotify, YouTube, all the audio channels. So you can listen to Dr. Emily and I speaking. And lastly, we'll give a quick shout out to the expo where Naboso Technology will be in person,
Yeah.
right? The expo, it was last year, it was in Chicago. This year will be in Denver, and it's going to be dozens of barefoot brands, thousands of barefoot people and enthusiasts, and also featuring not just barefoot shoe brands, but also a barefoot related technology brand such as Naboso. So it's a great time to come and see. And there's also going to be tons of workshops. Are you giving a workshop? You want to give a quick cameo about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am stoked for the Barefoot Shoe Expo.
We
Like,
all are.
I love it. Last year it was ridiculous. It actually gives me goosebumps, which sounds ridiculous, but it's just how excited I get about minimal shoes. It was such a great experience where there were 2,000 people one day in Chicago near the airport. So it wasn't even in Chicago. It's like out of it. And everyone was just so incredible. I just feel people in the barefoot shoe community are just some of the most authentic people, authentic humans. So now it's 2 days. It's 2 days in Denver. The dates, is it the weekend of the
Friday, it's
17th?
a Friday, Saturday, May 16, 17. I don't quote me on
Yeah,
that.
like around
Saturday,
those dates. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing 2 paid workshops. So this year they have
cool.
some that are paid just so that um last year the workshops that I did, it was like overflowing. So I know Anya wanted to kind of manage it a little bit through like tickets and stuff like that. I'm going to be doing a Bulletproof Your Feet where I go over my 4 pillars for movement longevity. I'm not going to tell you what those are yet. You have to go to
Well,
hear those.
I'll be
But
working the events. I'll be at the door letting the people in for you. So
yes. Okay, perfect. So you'll hear
yeah.
that. But yes, and then I also will be doing 2 free workshops. So not all the workshops are paid. Some are paid, some are free or complimentary. Incredible opportunity to try the shoes, try the products, learn, network, and then meet some of the people like yourself who people see on social media and they're like, oh my God, meet you in person. So I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, we're
People definitely
also
go.
we're going to be surrounded, as you said before, by a community of just like holistic, like-minded human beings who are all on the same wavelengths as us. So, anyways, Dr. Emily, I know you have to go. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again in May time in Denver, and have an amazing. You're in Japan now. Where are you these
Oh,
days?
no. I'm in Arizona.
Oh,
I
you're
go to
back home.
Korea. I
Okay,
go to Korea next
Korea.
week, so you're close.
Okay, so enjoy your travels, and looking forward to seeing you in the States. Have an amazing time.
Amazing.
Thanks for coming live again with us.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.